Hello everybody, my name is Maelin Rennemeyer, and I am your 2024 YIG Lieutenant Governor. This will be my third time at Youth in Government, and I enjoy the conference so much. I was a committee chair at last year's conference, but this year I get to help all of you guys prepare for being a committee chair. I am so excited to get YIG 24 started, and that starts with you guys. So today we'll be learning everything you need to know as a committee chair to run your chamber and to make session more productive. So first, what is a committee chair? If this is your first time being a committee chair, don't worry, it is more simple than it may appear. A committee chair is the presiding officer over a congressional chamber. So both the Senate and the House chambers will have committee chairs on the first day of the Youth in Government Conference. This will be your role on the first day of sessions, and you will already be pre-assigned either the House or the Senate chamber. However, on the second day of the conference, you will report to either the House or the Senate for debate because you are a member of Congress. So on the second day of conference, please prepare speeches on the past bills that will be debated. In the committee chambers, though, you are chairing. You are not allowed to give speeches on the legislation in the docket. However, your clerk will be able to give speeches and be a part of the debate. The clerk is basically your assistant and is in charge of reading the title of the bills, keeping track of what bills have passed and which have failed, and tallying up votes when previous question is motioned. So you as the committee chair will choose your clerk before the session starts. So now let's talk about session, debate, and what chamber will look like. So after you've chosen your clerk, the session is going to start. So let's dive into starting session. You run the session. So the chamber only begins when you decide to start. The session begins when you start to hit the gavel and say that we will begin. You must have 2/3 majority of your chamber though, so make sure that the majority of the people that are supposed to be there are there before you start. Once you have hit the gavel, ask the chamber if there are any motions at this time. If there are, you must vote on all motions. Any motion that is presented during the session needs to be voted on as well. For an example, if someone motions to have personal privilege will be in effect for the entirety of the day unless voted otherwise. You will say something on the lines of, are there any motions at this time? And then call on the delegate with a motion and ask all in favor of motioning on personal privilege. And so the motions that will pass will go into effect. This is really important because all the members of Congress can make each session the best to accommodate them. So once all motions are voted on, debate needs to start. So let's talk about starting the debate session part. Debate can only begin if a representative or senator motions to open the floor for debate and motioning to open the docket. Once those two motions are voted on and passed, debate can begin. So from this point forward, you are just the person who makes session to make sure session is running smoothly. So once the docket is motioned to be opened, it is time to start debating and going through legislation. First, have your clerk read the title of the bill, and then you will ask if there are any other authorship or sponsorship speeches at this time. Authorship and sponsorship speeches are speeches only from the author of the bill or a person who is speaking on the author's behalf. If there is, they have the floor to give their speech. After their 3-minute speech and any other speech that will be given, there's a 2-minute questioning period. And so after the author or any other person gets done with giving that speech, always thank them for their speech and say that what will be happening next. So for an example, thank you for that speech, Representative. We will now be moving on to a 2-minute questioning period. All those are the questions. Please raise your placards. Then hit your gavel once. After this, you'll be calling on the people in order of precedence and recency for questioning, which we will discuss in a second. This applies to all questioning periods, whether it's with an author, sponsor, or member of Congress speaking in affirmation or negation. So, after the author is done speaking and their questioning period has expired, we always start with speeches and affirmation about the bill. Again, call on a speaker who wants to speak on the bill and allow them to have the floor. Then after that, move into negation and so on. The process continues by calling on representatives who want to speak with a 3-minute speech and then onto a 2-minute questioning period. This will go on until there are no more speeches or the chamber motions and votes for previous question, which means it's time to vote on the bill. You will state what we are doing. So, for an example, quote, now we are moving on to previous question. All those in favor passing this bill, please raise your placards. And then ask for those in affirmation, negation, and abstaining on the bill. And then also have your clerk tally up the votes and keep track of the passed and failed bills. And then at the end of debating through the docket, or whenever you guys go to lunch or leaving for the day, just give those passed and failed bills to us, and we will make sure that we keep track and update the docket on all the passed and failed legislation. And then one more thing for debate and chamber, before we move on to the next thing, make sure that once you are leaving for lunch or leaving for the day that you adjourn session, and that needs to be motioned on. All right, so next we move on to precedence and recency. So when choosing who the speaker is for a speech and affirmation or negation, precedence and recency is something that you keep track of. You can also give that task to the clerk if you don't want to do that, but I recommend that both you and the clerk do precedence and recency, so if there is a mistake, there is more than just one person keeping track of precedence and recency. The best way I find to keep track of precedence and recency is using Prepped. I find it so efficient, and it just shows you who is higher on the list to give speeches in question. It does all the thinking and finding for you. So let's walk real quick how to use Prepped. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so now let's talk about how to access Prepped in the precedence and recency tracker. So all you're going to do is Google Prepped, spelled like this, and then you are going to choose this top contender right here. And then once you do, it's going to look like this. So you are going to sign up, which it costs nothing. All you have to do is add in your email and a little personal information, and then it's going to ask you if you are a debater or if you're a coach or something like that. You are going to choose you're a debater, and then you are going to choose that you are doing this by yourself and not joining a class or a school or something like that. And then once you get there, here, I'm just going to log in real quick. You should have these options to launch one of their apps. You are going to launch the Congress app. So make sure you go into the Congress one, and you should go into this. So once you get here, you're going to go down to Precedence Tracker right here, and then it'll pop up down here. So open Precedence Tracker. And then so once you are here, so this is your precedence and recency. So once you're, as a committee chair in round, add in all the legislators that are in round with you. So, Representative George, Representative Bob, Danny, these people. Okay, so let's say Danny, Bob, or George wants to give a speech in negation or affirmation. You would just press this button, add speech, and then it'll automatically move them to the bottom. Let's say George gives a speech, Bob gives another speech, I give a speech. It just automatically organizes who's next in line. So let's say Danny wants to give a speech. He's at the top, so he automatically gets priority to give the speech. But let's say George and Bob raise their placards wanting to give a speech in affirmation. George has priority over Bob since he's higher on the list. Does that make sense? And then for questioning, all you would do is go up here to precedence, and then you would go down to questions, and it has its own precedent recency for questioning periods and then also for speeches. So let's say Bob asks a question, I ask a question, just a few more questions. It automatically organizes who has more priority to ask a question over the other. So let's say, Bob and George raise their placards to both ask a question to the speaker. Bob has priority over George. Does that make sense? So all this is doing is allowing speakers to have priority over the others in round. Just to make sure that everybody gets equal say. So I hope that makes sense how to set up precedence or recency. Again, you can do it however you feel is most efficient for you. This is just what I recommend, and as chairing and being presiding officer, this is how I find is most efficient. So I hope this helps, and let me know if you need anything else with this. Okay, the last thing we need to cover is the gavel. It can be very intimidating and feels like you have a lot of control, but I promise it keeps things efficient and the chamber in line. So the gavel is just there to gain attention and to have a formal way to end and begin things. I'll just go over quickly what to do with the gavel. First, before asking if there are any speeches or questions, hit the gavel to mark that they may now raise their placards. For example, we will now be moving into a speech in negation. All those with speeches, please raise your placards, and then hit the gavel. Same with asking for people to raise their placards for questioning period. Do the same thing of hit your gavel when you ask them to raise their placards. Second, if the chamber is not giving their attention, there's a lot of talking, or it's just not organized, hit the gavel and yell decorum until the chamber is quiet. Third, if the bill gets passes or fails, hit the gavel once to declare the decision is final. For example, after voting, say, with a vote of 12 to 2 to 1, That bill does indeed pass. My congratulations to the author, and then hit your gavel. Now, time signals during speeches. This is big. Make sure that you're keeping time during speeches and questioning periods. I recommend just using your phone stopwatch, but just keep time however it fits for you. During a speech, whether that's an authorship, affirmation, or negation speech, the chair provides time signals. So it's really simple. At 1 minute, hit the gavel once. At 2 minutes, hit it twice. And when they hit 3 minutes, just hit it 3 times. And that is their time limit. However, they get a 10-second grace period where the speaker can wrap it up quickly. However, if they surpass the grace period, hit your gavel until they stop speaking. This is just to keep things more productive and to keep debate flowing. This doesn't apply to question period though, but when the 2-minute question period is up, don't take any more questions unless voted otherwise in motioning. So also, please explain time signals before you start the session to the chamber, just so that they know what your taps mean if it is different for how they've done Congress in the past. Okay, that is everything you need to know about being a committee chair. If you have any questions and want to clarify anything with me, please just email me at maelinrennemeyer@gmail.com. That is spelled Maelin, Rennemeyer, Rennemeyer @gmail.com. I hope that you guys learned a lot and feel a little bit more prepared about being a committee chair. I'm so excited for you to step into your role and to get 2024 Youth in Government started, and I can't wait to see all of you guys in November. I will see you guys soon.